Investigative journalism is a form of journalism in which reporters deeply investigate a single topic of interest, such as serious crimes, political corruption, or corporate wrongdoing. An investigative journalist may spend months or years researching and preparing a report. Investigative journalism is a primary source of information. Most investigative journalism is conducted by newspapers, wire services, and freelance journalists. Practitioners sometimes use the term accountability reporting. One of the largest teams of investigative journalists is the Washington-based International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, launched in 1997 by the Center for Public Integrity, which includes 165 investigative reporters in over 65 countries working collaboratively on crime, corruption, and abuse of power at a global level. Under Jerry Udrall as director, working with major media outlets globally, they have exposed organized crime, international tobacco companies, private military cartels, asbestos companies, climate change lobbyists, details of Iraq and Afghanistan war contracts, and most recently the Panama Papers. An investigative reporter may make use of one or more of these tools, among others, on a single story. Analysis of documents, such as lawsuits and other legal documents, tax records, government reports, regulatory reports, and corporate financial filings. Databases of public records. Investigation of technical issues, including scrutiny of government and business practices and their effects. Research into social and legal issues. Subscription research sources such as LexisNexis. Numerous interviews with on-the-record sources, as well as, in some instances, interviews with anonymous sources. Federal Estate Freedom of Information Acts to obtain documents and data from government agencies. Professional definitions. University of Missouri journalism professor Steve Weinberg defined investigative journalism as reporting, through one's own initiative and work product, matters of importance to readers, viewers, or listeners. Quote, "In many cases, the subjects of the reporting wish the matters under scrutiny to remain undisclosed. There are currently university departments for teaching investigative journalism. Conferences are conducted presenting peer-reviewed research into investigative journalism." British media theorist Hugo de Berg states that an investigative journalist is a man or woman whose profession it is to discover the truth and to identify lapses from it in whatever media may be available. The act of doing this generally is called investigative journalism and is distinct from apparently similar work done by police, lawyers, or auditors, and regulatory bodies in that it is not limited as to target, not legally founded, and closely connected to publicity. Terminology. American journalism textbooks point out that muckraking standards promoted by McClure's magazine around 1902 have become integral to the character of modern investigative journalism. Furthermore, the successes of the early muckrakers continued to inspire journalists. Examples. Julius Chambers of the New York Tribune had himself committed to the Bloomingdale Asylum in 1872, and his account led to the release of 12 patients who were not mentally ill, a reorganization of the staff and administration, and, eventually, to a change in the lunacy laws. This later led to the publication of the book A Mad World and Its Inhabitants. Nellie Bly is known for her record-breaking trip around the world in 72 days, in emulation of Jules Verne's fictional character Phileas Fogg, and an exposé for the New York World in which she faked insanity to study a mental institution from within. Bill Dedman's 1988 investigation, The Color of Money, for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on racial discrimination by mortgage lenders in middle-income neighborhoods, received the 1989 Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting and was an influential early example of computer-assisted reporting, a database journalism. Brian Deer's British Press Award-winning investigation for the Sunday Times of London into the worldwide MMR vaccine controversy, which revealed that research published by The Lancet associating the children's vaccine with autism was fraudulent. John M. Crudson of the Chicago Tribune wrote a 1996 article proposing the installment of defibrillators on American airliners. Crudson argued that based on his research and analysis, medical kits and defibrillators would be economically justified if they saved just 3 lives each year. Soon after the article's publication, airlines began installing defibrillators on planes, and the devices began to show up in airports and other public spaces. 10 years after installing defibrillators, American Airlines reported that 80 lives had been saved by the machines. Notable investigative reporters. Awards. George Polk Awards. Goldsmith Prize for Investigative Reporting. Investigative Reporters and Editors Award. Pulitzer Prize for Investigative Reporting. Worth Bingham Prize for Investigative Reporting. Bureaus, Centers, and Institutes for Investigations. Bureau of Investigative Journalism. California Watch. Center for Investigative Journalism. Center for Investigative Reporting. Berkeley, California, USA. Center for Investigative Reporting. Center for Public Integrity through their International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Global South Development Magazine. Investigative News Network. Investigative Reporting Workshop. Investigative Reporters and Editors. Italian Association on Investigative Journalism. New England Center for Investigative Reporting. Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. ProPublica. Television programs. Expose America's Investigative Reports. The growth of media conglomerates in the U.S. since the 1980s has been accompanied by massive cuts in the budgets for investigative journalism. A 2002 study concluded that investigative journalism has all but disappeared from the nation's commercial airwaves. The empirical evidence for this is consistent with the conflicts of interest between the revenue sources for the media conglomerates and the mythology of an unbiased, dispassionate media. Advertisers have reduced the spending with media that reported too many unfavorable details. The major media conglomerates have found ways to retain their audience without the risks of offending advertisers inherent in investigative journalism.